The average person is said to spend 15 minutes in the bathroom. Why not take advantage of that time and learn something new? Presenting the 15-minute podcast on weird facts, crazy details, and funny particulars that you'll be able to enjoy while you're taking a on your free time. Welcome to This Shit with Sam Butler. Welcome to another episode of The Shit Podcast. We have my very special guest, a good friend of mine, all the way from across the studio. Welcome back, my friend, Luis Garcia.
Here I am. Thank you, Sam. Thank you very much for having me here.
Hey, thank you for being here. Thank you for having me on your podcast. I had a lot of fun. We talked about
awesome, Sam.
Boxing, all the different things. I mean, it started out as like a single podcast, and then we went 3 hours, so we split it in two. So I got to be in 2 episodes. How cool is that? So I appreciate that. I mean, it was a long time in coming. I was like, when are they going to invite me? I mean, and then you guys would walk in the studio kind of not looking at me because you don't. No, I'm just kidding.
We were waiting for the perfect
that was
topic
awesome
for you.
Yeah, and I'd love to come back anytime, but thank you for being back. I mean, you've been, this is like your 3rd time on mine, so that's cool having you back. I love having all you guys here. We're going to talk about something. We did an episode in Spanish on Friday. This is the Tuesday after, and we're going to talk about weather phenomenon because we talked about earthquakes in the last one. And you're a reporter. You're actually a live working reporter. You work for cable news and you do a lot of stuff. So I figured you probably had a lot of experience reporting on phenomenon. So we're going to talk about hurricanes.
Okay, not hurricanes because in El Paso just floodings and sandstorms, but
well, we're going to talk. It's like there's so much to talk about when it comes to hurricanes. I don't have experience being in a hurricane, although I did go to New Orleans after Katrina, and I helped in the rebuilding there.
Oh, okay. And also my honeymoon was almost ruined by a hurricane.
Where did you guys go?
Bahamas. It was 2019 when the Dorian.
Oh, wow. Yeah,
so we went in a cruise ship, and we're supposed to go to the Bahamas, to Nassau, and then it's a Cococay. It's like a little island, and they canceled that day because of the hurricane.
Yeah. Well, hurricanes.
So fuck you, Dorian. Sorry.
Yeah. Why is your first kid named Dorian? Because he ruined our honeymoon. Yeah, but a lot of people are like, well, what's a hurricane? Mm-hmm. What's the difference between a hurricane and a typhoon?
Okay.
What's the difference between a typhoon, a hurricane, and a tornado?
The typhoon and the hurricane is just the name? Pretty
much.
Yeah, right.
It's geographical.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
So, first of all, they're all part of all storms or all weather phenomenon that spin in a circle are called cyclones.
Yeah. Okay.
Right? So a cyclone can be a tornado, it could be a hurricane, it could be a typhoon, it could be a dust devil. We get dust devils here all the time.
Or it could be your toilet.
Yeah, it could be your toilet as long as it spins in a circle. It's a cyclone. Now, hurricanes come from something called tropical cyclones.
Yeah.
So the only thing about hurricanes and typhoons is that they can only happen where it's warm. Mm-hmm. And pretty much, if you don't know, I mean, if you listen to this, a lot of y'all will probably know. But just to cover our bases, typhoons, hurricanes, tornadoes, cyclones pretty much happen when 2 forces of air collide. One's cold and one's hot, and it starts to spin. Yep. So you have warm air coming up off the ocean in the Caribbean, in tropical zones, and that collides with cold air, and it creates this spinning circle, which is a cyclone.
Yeah.
It gets categorized as a hurricane when it gets to a certain size.
Or speed, or both?
Or speed, and both.
Okay.
And I believe it has to be like over 40 miles an hour before it goes like 37 miles an hour, and it becomes a tropical storm. And then if it goes above that and it goes to like 50 or more, 60 miles an hour, it becomes a hurricane or a typhoon. I believe it's like 60. I read this info. I didn't write that down, but it was like anything below 30 miles an hour is a cyclone or a tropical cyclone. Anything above that then becomes a tropical storm.
Mm-hmm.
And then anything above that becomes then a hurricane or a typhoon.
Yeah.
Now, what's interesting about hurricanes is that they're huge. They're like hundreds of miles. They're 100 miles wide at the eye, and that's where the most powerful part of the deal is. And they might even have tornadoes with them.
Oh, that's like a
so
super combo, right?
Yeah, super combo. Yeah. So you'll have a spinning weather system.
Okay.
And that might have tornadoes within that spinning weather system.
It's like a pizza with pizza topping, like
little pepperonis. That's a good way to put it. But it could also have tornadoes, which are like mini weather systems within the weather system, lightning, right, and thunder. And so you have this. The eye of it could be 100 miles wide. Mm-hmm. Whereas a tornado, I think the biggest tornado ever registered was like 10 miles wide, which is wide.
That's huge.
Still big, but that's like the biggest ever seen. There's hundreds of tornadoes. And the difference between a tornado and a hurricane is that a tornado usually starts on land.
Yeah, and it goes
right, but it can also happen where it's cold.
Okay.
Whereas hurricanes are strictly tropical.
Mm-hmm.
Right, so it comes from warm air out of the ocean, and if it comes out of the Atlantic Ocean, it's a hurricane, and parts of the Pacific, because it could come from anything that hits Mexico or the west coast of South America would be considered a hurricane.
Okay.
Beyond that, if it hits the Asian countries on the other side of the Pacific, like it hits Japan, it hits the Philippines, it hits anything like that, it's considered a typhoon.
Oh, okay.
But it's the same exact thing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's not one of the things that I realized here that I read and I thought, wow, that's pretty interesting, is the fact that it's not the wind that usually kills people.
Oh no, it's the flood, right?
It's the flood. It's the flooding. Yeah. It's the surge. For example, when we went to New Orleans after Katrina, New Orleans was okay during the storm, but if you know anything about New Orleans, it has a lake called Lake Pontchartrain, and that lake is huge. You can fit El Paso inside the lake. That's how big it is. Okay. It's 22 miles wide, 35 miles long.
Okay.
So you could take the city of El Paso and literally put it in there, and you would be bigger than the city of El Paso. And so that lake dumps into the ocean.
Okay.
Right? And if you look at the state of Louisiana, it looks like it has a chunk missing. Well, that's the lake.
Oh, okay.
Okay, it looks like an L shape and it has a chunk missing. And then you have the ocean there and the Mississippi River. Okay. So they all meet there. That's why New Orleans was such a good trading post. You could actually, a lot of the trade that came to the United States would come to Louisiana, and then it would go up the Mississippi up north to like Chicago. And if you've ever seen the Mississippi, it's huge. It's a couple miles across. And so you see these big barges on the Mississippi, and that was a major highway made out of water. So when Katrina hit, the storm surge, the water rised coming from the ocean, and it dumped into Lake Pontchartrain. Mm-hmm. Right now, there's a bridge that goes across from New Orleans, and it goes across towards Mississippi, towards another town called Slidell. But that's a 7-mile stretch. That 7-mile stretch gaps over the lake on that skinny part that dumps into the ocean. Mm-hmm. There's another bridge that cuts across the middle. That's the bridge to Vanderville. That's 22 miles long.
Okay.
So it's like a football-shaped lake, and then you have a 7-mile stretch going to Slidell. Well, the storm surge was so big that it lifted the bridge off of its piers. Wow. The concrete bridge, a big section of it. So the bridge to Slidell got wiped out. A big section of that got wiped out. So that tells you the water got the water raised. And then New Orleans has canals. There's even one of their main streets. It's called Canal Street, but it actually has canals cutting through the city, and it cuts through the city so that anything that surges in Lake Pontchartrain will dump into the Mississippi River and dump back into the ocean.
Okay.
So it has these levees and these canals cut. Well, the water got taller than the walls on the levees, and then it dumped over the side of the levee, and it undermined the wall, and then the wall collapsed, and then the whole lake came inside the city.
Damn.
And that's why the city had so many problems. The city sits 6 feet below sea level, and the water from Lake Pontchartrain dumped into the whole city, and it was 6 foot tall almost everywhere. And so you can't really see it nowadays. The last time, maybe about 5 years ago, you could still kind of see watermarks in some of the buildings where the water level was, and it's pretty high. So a lot of people drowned that didn't leave.
Yeah.
A lot of people went to the Superdome, and they were there. But the Superdome sits up a little higher. Okay. Then the most of the 7th ward got wiped out. The 9th ward got wiped out, and ironically, the French Quarter, one of the oldest parts of New Orleans, didn't get wiped out. It only had like a half inch of water, so that was built at a different elevation, which is pretty impressive because it's like right up against the Mississippi River.
Yeah.
Right. But you saw a lot of that. That was devastating. So it's the surge, it's the water rising that kills most of the people in hurricanes.
Yeah.
So I went on a rant about New Orleans. I was there for 7 months. I love the city. It's one of my favorite places. Ironically, one of the things that I found here was that New Orleans is known for voodoo.
Yeah.
Right. It said they had 3,000 voodoo practitioners before Katrina.
Okay.
A lot of them died during the storm. A lot of them died. No, a lot of them died, and a lot of them moved away.
Okay.
So it became a thing where they were down to like 300 from 3,000. Now New Orleans was big time into voodoo. A lot of their corner stores were called Voodoo Mart, and they had like voodoo chips, and they had like you can get little voodoo doll keychains. Mary LaVue was the voodoo priestess. So New Orleans culture was part of that, and they said a lot of those guys, a lot of them quit practicing voodoo and just kind of blended in with the rest of religion. A lot of them passed away, but there was a push to try and bring voodoo back to New Orleans.
So probably someone did a voodoo to the city, right?
I don't know. You know, it was a very sad thing to witness, because I was driving to Mississippi, Biloxi, and you take that bridge. A portion of the bridge, it's a 7 mile bridge, and a good mile of it got washed away, but one side of it didn't. So they took that bridge and they opened it up to where they repaired that one bridge quickly, so you could actually drive up and down that bridge. But you were limited to one side of the bridge.
Okay.
And you would drive the Mississippi through there, and you could see the beach on the Mississippi side, and you could actually see boats on the other side of the freeway, the other side of the highway, where they got washed onto the higher land, and then the water receded, and those boats were just left there kind of leaned over. You saw a lot of signs bent over. So it was a very devastating thing. I mean, it looked like there had been a war, and this was years afterwards.
It was 2005 Katrina?
2005 was Katrina. I was there in 2006 through like 2007.
Okay.
And I made a lot of friends, and I would talk to them. I would say, so where were you during the storm? And they were like, it was bad. I lost a family member. I lost everything I had. We lost our house. And everybody kind of had their story, you know? And it was a lot of really nice people in New Orleans, and a lot of messed up houses. They would put blue tarps, the FEMA tarps, on the roofs, you know, and 2 years later they still had those blue tarps on those roofs where there was so many contractors working. There was so much work to rebuild New Orleans, but even years after, you could see the effects, and you could see the psychological effects. A lot of people were still mourning. You'd go by the houses, and they had these X's on the side of the house. And those X's were used by the rescue services. So it had how many people were in the house, if they found any dead people, but you knew it was checked. And you could see the numbers of where they found bodies. And that was sad. And then New Orleans is swampy, so they don't bury you underground. They put you in crypts and tombs.
Okay. So
a lot of that stuff floated away, and they had bodies floating down the street. So it was pretty devastating. It was you start to understand the power of nature in those situations. You feel bad. I mean, it was good to be there. It really helps you have a better, more humane mentality towards what people go through, you know. But anyway, let's keep going because we have a lot of stuff to talk about. One of the things that was a funny fact was that Walmart customers in the United States, when there's going to be a hurricane, they stock up on beer.
Oh yeah, of course.
And Pop-Tarts.
Pop-Tarts?
Pop-Tarts, strawberry.
Well,
that's only that's only in the United States. And I got to tell you, I like Pop-Tarts cold. I don't even like putting them in the toaster. I just eat them cold. It's a nice cracker with like a little strawberry. So I get it. But in Hawaii, they don't do that. In Hawaii, they actually stock up more on water. Okay. And then they figured out that the Costco customers were more like toilet paper, water, stuff. And the Walmart guys were like Pop-Tarts and beer. I thought that was hilarious, right? Let's see. The longest storm was lasting a month. 1994's tropical storm John spun its way around the Pacific Ocean, making it the longest lasting storm on record. The smallest one was smallest named Atlantic storm was 2008. Marco, I remember that, in the southwest Gulf of Mexico. It was only 12 miles wide from its center. These deadly, dangerous storms were both powerful and impossible to control, which makes them more interesting to scientists because they wanted to see the difference between the big and small. Right? Okay. One of the things that I also learned is that the government gets letters, hundreds of thousands of letters of people asking, why can't you just shoot a nuclear bomb into the storm? And then, you know, it's for real. It's like, I'm not even making that up, you know?
I'm pretty sure a lot of people will have like shot with their own guns to the clouds.
Boom, boom, boom. But they're like, can we just detonate a bomb and get rid of everything? You know, that was one of the big things too. Now the storms had names always so that they can tell which storm was but they didn't have people's names. They had names like, let me see.
Like Alpha, Delta, and stuff like that.
Easy, Love, How, right? More verb type names.
Scorpions.
But one of the worst storms that ever hit was Easy. And they were like, yeah, we got to stop. we got to stop doing that. So it was an Australian. He was a meteorologist named Clement, and I'm going to say Ragge. It's Wragge. He started the tradition, but he did it to make fun of people. You know, okay. He named storms after anything that popped into his head, which was usually the name of Greek gods and beautiful women. But after a while, he gave up on the whole idea and he started putting names of some of the politicians so he could make fun of them. As revenge, he named cyclones after them. For example, he named storms after Edmund Barton and Alfred Deakin, the first two prime ministers of Australia, purely so that he could send out reports saying that Edmund Barton was wandering aimlessly about the Pacific and causing great distress.
Nice.
So I mean, he did that, but in 1950, it kind of caught on in the United States, and they started naming them after people because they had strange storm names like Hurricane Easy and Hurricane Love and Tropical Storm How, and these names didn't fit. Hurricane Easy was described as the worst hurricane experience in its area in more than 70 years. So they started naming it the names of people, and that's how you got that. Now, we're going to wrap it up, but the one fact that I got to share with you that just made me just go like, what are you talking about? This cannot be real. And it is real. Let me find it right here. And I'll read this to you. Are you familiar with Waffle House?
Yeah.
Okay. Waffle House, for a lot of people that are listening to us in Mexico and South America, but Waffle House is actually a restaurant in the United States that serves waffles, and they give you like, it's mostly a breakfast, and then they'll have some lunch and stuff like that. But they're these little dingy, I love Waffle House, but but Waffle House is so cheap that they make their employees work through the storms. And the employees only make like minimum wage. So FEMA decided that this was the best way to check to see how bad the storm is. And this is like for real, like, and I'll read it to you guys. FEMA has a strange way of checking how the nation's disaster recovery is going. When they can't get clear information. They don't necessarily bother sending in a team to check out how a community is doing. They just call the local Waffle House. But believe it or not, this is actually FEMA's standard system now. Waffle houses almost exclusively operate in hurricane areas, and they're uniquely willing to make their minimum wage employees endanger their lives by working through a storm with the power of a generator. So ever since 2012, FEMA has been paying Waffle House to report the status of their stores to the agency directly. There's a 3-tier system for measuring an area has recovered. Areas marked green if the local Waffle House is fully open, yellow if working off a limited menu, and red if the area is so dangerous that even Waffle House isn't willing to risk employees' lives to make sure that drunk people can get the all-star breakfast at 3 a.m. And that is it for this episode of the Shit Podcast. Thank you, Waffle House, because I know that no matter how bad shit gets, I can always stop by and get myself an all-star breakfast.
Fuck yeah. But
thank you for coming. This was a fun episode. I got a little carried away with the New Orleans stuff, but it's a place that I love, and I learned a lot. And so my heart goes out to all those people that lost someone. I'm glad you guys are back, and I need to go. It's been a year. I mean, this whole COVID thing, I haven't been back. I got to go back. I got to get some beignets. I gotta have a 3-for-1 on Bourbon Street. So that's a drink. I had 3 drinks for the price of 1. Not like a 3-for-1, you know. But how can people find you?
People can find me on any social network. Well, not any, just Instagram and Facebook as Luisardo Garcia.
Luisardo Garcia.
And I'm over there.
Yeah. And your podcast, ¿Qué fue de ellos?
My podcast, What Happened with Them? Well, it's in Spanish, ¿Qué fue de ellos? But
where are they now?
You want to know in Spanish what happened to 90s popular people and
90s, 80s, right?
90s, 80s, even the 2000s. But yeah, you can check those out. And we have an episode with you.
Yeah.
About Mike Tyson and
the
Chavez.
Boxing one. Yeah,
So
golden
if you want to go over there and learn some Spanish, or you just how we curse in Spanish.
That's awesome. And how we drink, because we drank quite a bit of beer on that episode. But thank you guys for joining us. You can find me at my social media as Tu Amigo Sam. And also you can listen to us on any platform for podcast as Sta Cagado Podcast. And of course, if you're watching this, you already know this. But tell your friends, like and subscribe, comment, put the notifications. All of that helps me tremendously. Thank you guys for all your support. And you can also tune in on the 30th of this month. We're going to have a live broadcast. All the info is going to be out on Leyendas Legendarias. You guys will probably be talking about it too. We're doing another live. So make sure you guys check us out the 30th live here in the studio. And also our new podcast in Spanish, Puros y Pistos, talking about cigars and whiskey and beer and wine, all this cool shit. So thank you guys for all the support. We'll see you soon. Have a good day.